Hello and welcome to ESG 301 Interim Updates, Household Additions, and Corrections. I am your trainer, HMIS System Lead Trisha Cano. In this session, I will be demonstrating how to create an interim update, how to add an additional household member to an existing entry, and how to make some small corrections in HMIS. Please note that if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the HMIS Help Desk via email at hmiSsupport@cir.org or by phone or text at 602-908-3605. Thanks, and let's get started. The first thing I'm going to demonstrate today is how to do an interim update. This is how we document any changes in the client's status during their stay in your project. This could be changes in income, in benefits, in education level, or we document when they moved into their permanent housing. Any change in the client's status after the intake date is an interim, and it's required for rapid rehousing or homeless prevention projects, usually at 90-day intervals or more often if your contract states that. The first thing I'm going to show is how to document when the client moves into their permanent housing or their apartment. So once you log into HMIS or Service Point, you should get into Enter Data As mode to the project the client is currently receiving assistance from. So click on your Enter Data As link in the upper right-hand corner, and then choose the project the client is in. Using the same client that we used in ESG 300 class, we're going to choose the Rapid Rehousing Apache project. And then decide, did the client move into their apartment today, or did they move in a few days ago and you're just getting around to entering that data now? If they entered a few days ago, then you should get into backdate mode to the day they actually moved in. For demonstration purposes and training today, we're definitely going to use backdate. So click on your backdate link in the upper right-hand corner and change the day to the day they moved into their apartment. Let's say they moved in 30 days later, so the original entry date was October 5th, so we'll have them move in to their apartment on November 5th. Set backdate. And then finally, we will go to the menu and click on the Client Point module and search for our client in the system. If you remember, it was Test Client ESG, or if you had their client ID number written down, you could search for them by their HMIS client ID number here. I searched for my client ahead of time to make things go quickly today, and so they're in my client search results below. You can click on their name or the pencil next to their name to open their record. Once their record opens, we need to go to the Entry Exit tab to access interim updates. Keep in mind that interims right here means in the middle. It means everything that happens between the entry and the exit. Please do not ever go into the entry and change the information recorded there unless it was a mistake. This is like a snapshot in time of where the client was at entry, and any changes that happened during their stay with you should be recorded on an update assessment through the interims icon. So you will be on your head of household or your individual client. You'd find their line of entry into your project, and then you would click on this interims icon. You click Add an Interim Review. It automatically associates the review with everyone in the family, and that's fine. And then you choose the review type. Are you doing an update, or are you doing an annual assessment? Well, this is an update because it's not a year later. And then the review date automatically populates to November 5th because that's what we're in backdate mode too. Then click Save and Continue. And when you do this, this ESG update assessment opens. The nice thing about this assessment is the questions that you populated on the entry assessment flow in, but any changes you make won't change the entry. It just changes the update. So we need to find the answers that we need to update and make those changes. So I'm on my head of household, and I've said they've moved into their apartment now. So I need to scroll down to the bottom, excuse me, and find the in permanent housing question and change it from a no to a yes. And then I need to document the day they've moved in. Since I'm in backdate mode, I can use this little shortcut of the calendar with the green check mark, and it'll put today's date or my backdate date of November 5th, 2015, and click Save. Now remember, as I stated in ESG 300, this needs to be updated on everyone in the family. If this was a single, you could just click Save and Exit. But since this is a family, I also have to indicate that my client's child has moved into the apartment as well. And save. And you would do this for every member of the family. Once everyone has been updated for their move-in date, you click Save and Exit, and then you'll be redirected back to the Interim Reviews preview pane where you can see, oh yes, I did an update on November 5th. This is when they moved into their apartment. Exit out of this pop-up, and you are done. Now I will demonstrate some more interim updates. Let's say their income and non-cash benefits have changed. So the client came to you a month later on December 5th and let you know that they got a raise and their non-cash benefits have changed. They're no longer receiving food stamps, but now they're getting TANF childcare, for instance. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I need to change my back date to December 5th, which is the new date the client's reporting to me. So I change it to December 5th, and I would search for my client as usual. Go to the Entry Exit tab of the head of household or the client that we're talking about. Find their line of entry into your project and click on Interims again. I see the old update I did back in November, which is for their move-in date. And now I'm going to add another interim review. This one is in December. It is an update, and save and continue. And this time I'm going to update their income and their benefits. So the first thing I need to change is their monthly income. The client reports that it went from $500 to $1,200. So I will change the amount here. I will still leave this yes because they're still receiving income. And I need to update the amount in this sub-assessment of monthly income. The easiest way to do this is to click on this magnifying glass next to the word monthly income, and it will open up all of the types for you at once, and it's much easier to look at this way. And then you can also sort it by monthly amount, and then all your income will go to the top. So I don't want to edit and change this 500. I want to end this 500 and start a new income in the new amount. So the way that I do that is I'm going to edit the old income of 500 by clicking this pencil to the left. And I'm not going to change it. I'm going to end it. I need to end it the day before the client reported the change. So if she reported the change on December 5th, I'm going to end it on December 4th. I will not change this to a no. They were receiving this amount of income between these dates. Then click Save. So now they're not receiving anything. I've ended the old amount, but I need to add back in the new amount. So scroll down to the bottom left corner and click the Add button to add a new source. Choose the source of income. In this case, it's earned income again, but now they have a new amount of $1,200. They are, yes, receiving this a new amount as of December 5th, and then click Save. And now you can see you have your old income still documented between these dates, but the new income which is currently active. When you're done, you can scroll down and click Exit in the bottom right corner. You'll notice that my HUD verification is still green, and that means that I did this transaction correctly. If your HUD verification turns red, it means you've made a mistake. Now I need to update my client's non-cash benefits. Just for demonstration purposes today, we're going to say that she is no longer receiving her food stamps because she's making too much money. So I would change this, is the client receiving non-cash benefits, from a yes to a no, because they're no longer receiving them. And I would click again on this magnifying glass next to the word non-cash benefits in this sub-assessment so I could see them all at once. And I know I need to end the food stamps yes and add a new one that says no, kind of like we did with the income above. So I'm going to edit the food stamps source that says yes, and I'm just going to put an end date. And the end date needs to be, remember, the day before the new information starts. So she reports to me that they ended on 12/5, or she reported it to me on 12/5, then I'm going to say they ended on 12/4. I will not change this yes to a no. It's still yes because they were receiving these food stamps in between these two dates, and then click Save. However, I'm not done, because if I move this over, you can see that my HUD verification has turned red. That means I need to add food stamps back in with a no, not receiving this benefit anymore. So I'm going to click Add Food Stamps. No, they're not receiving them anymore as of 12/5/2015. Save. And now you'll see the HUD verification is green again. That means we've done it correctly, and you can click Exit. Now let's do a more complicated update. Let's say their health insurance has changed from Medicaid or Access to employer-provided health insurance. So I'm going to go to the health insurance sub-assessment and click on the magnifying glass so I can see everything at once. And I'm going to end the old status for both types of health insurance first. So I'm going to find the Medicaid yes covered, and I'm going to put an end date of the day before the change was reported, because being yes covered by Medicaid is ending on 12/4. And then I'm also going to find the old status for employer-provided health insurance, which used to be no, and I'm going to end it the day before as well, because the status of this has changed. So I've ended two insurance types, the one they were getting and the one they weren't getting. And now I need to add these two insurance types back in the correct way, the updated way. So I'm going to add Medicaid first back in, and I'm going to say they are no longer covered as of 12/5 by Medicaid, and Save. And then I'm going to add employer-provided insurance back in, and I'm going to say they are yes covered by employer-provided health insurance as of 12/5, and Save. Exit. My HUD verification is still green. I'm good to go. If these changes affected the other family members, you should adjust them as well. So remember, our child also had health insurance, so you would go to the child's record and make those changes as well. So we would do magnifying glass health insurance, and Medicaid, because she's no longer covered under Medicaid or Access. And we would end the old status for employer health insurance, because they are receiving it now. and I will add those back in under the new status of no longer receiving Medicaid and the new status of yes, whoops, wrong one, yes, employer provided health insurance. And you would do that for each person in the household that was affected by any changes that were made. And then when you were done, you could click Save and Exit, and now you have your second update done on December 5th. And exit that pop-up box. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you today is how to add an additional household member to an existing project entry. If you're working with a single, this doesn't pertain to you and you can fast forward this part. But this does happen in family situations sometimes. So for instance, let's say this client had an older child that was staying with a family member, but they went ahead and joined this intake shortly after she was enrolled in the ESG Rapid Rehousing project. So let's change our backdate day. So she was originally enrolled October 5th. So let's say a few days later, on October 15th, she had her older child join her. Click Set Backdate. So we changed to October 15th. And normally you would have had to search for your client and make sure you're in Enter Data As mode and all those good things. But once you were on your client record, as of the day the second child entered the project, you would go to the Households tab, because first we need to update the household grouping and then we can update the entry. I want to add another child to this household, so I'm going to click the Manage Household button. And then I want to add another client because right now it's just the two. So I'm going to click the Add or Delete Household Members. And then I'm going to expand the Add Clients to this household search screen. And I'm going to look for the second child. So I'll name this one Child Test. And this is her older child that was staying with a family member. We'll say we have the Social Security number for this child and do a search. Oh, well, there's another child with a similar name, but this isn't the one we're looking for. So we're going to add a new client with this information. See, different socials, and click Continue. Now her second older child has been added to the household. See, we went from 2 members to 3. But I need to set up the relationship. So I'll say this is a son this time. And the join date is 10/15, and that's okay. Click Save and Exit, and now your household has been updated to include this new child. Don't worry that the age is blank right now. Once we complete the assessment on this new child, this age will self-populate. Now we're going to go to the Entry Exit tab, keeping in mind we're still on the Head of Households record, not the new child's record. And we're going to edit the Head of Households entry to include the new child. So find the entry date and click on the Edit Entry pencil icon. When this pop-up window opens, you're going to notice that there's a button that says Include Additional Household Members, but this is not the button that we need. Clicking this button will include the new child on the same day as everyone else, but we need to include this child on a different day. So ignore this button for now and just click Save and Continue. Once the actual Entry Exit data screen opens and you can see the 2 clients in your project, you'll notice all of a sudden you can see this button again, Include Additional Household Members. This is the button that I'm looking for. So click the button, and now in your household grouping you can see the new child we're trying to add in. Check mark their name. But before you're done, please note that it wants to default to the entry date of the mother. And this is where you need to manually change it to the entry date of only the new child. Click Save and Continue, and it adds this new child to our entry on a different day than the other 2 members. This is exactly how it should look. But now we need to do the entry assessments on this new older child. So in order to complete the ESG entry assessment on the new child added to the entry, we're going to go to the household members listing on the left, find the new child right here at the bottom, and click on their name. It switches to them, and now my entry is blank and I can fill it in for this new child. So I'll do a new date of birth type, race, ethnicity, gender. Do they report a disability? Let's say they do report a disability for the child. Remember what I said, if it's no, you can leave it blank. But if it's yes, then you should answer this because you're going to have to put in the disability type down at the bottom. And then relationship to head of household is head of household's child. We don't need to complete income or non-cash benefits, but we do need to complete health insurance. We're going to complete this in the way that the same data as the mother came in on, because she came in on October 5th and we're doing this information on October 15th and nothing had changed yet. So we're going to say yes for health insurance, and we're going to say that this child is on Medicaid, just like the mother at entry. And this time for disabilities, we're going to say no, but we're going to say the child does have one disability. We'll say they have a chronic health condition. So I'm going to change that to yes. And I'm going to, answer my questions because I have that documentation in my client record. And save and exit. And then the only other thing I have to answer is in permanent housing. So back on October 15th, they were not in housing yet. Save and exit. And now I've added this third child to this entry. So if you click on your client count, see it went from 2 to 3. And one of them has a different start date, and that's exactly how we want it to look. Now the last thing I'm going to show you today is how to make some small data entry error corrections in HMIS. Let's use our first example, date of birth. And I'll give you a couple of different examples of how to fix date of birth. So let's say for the client that we were currently working with, we accidentally entered the date of birth wrong. Please do not make corrections to the date of birth in this client demographic section on the client profile. Remember I said this should never be edited here. You should always edit this information through the Entry Exit tab. So if you had made a mistake in the client's date of birth, you would go to the Entry Exit tab. You would find the entry into your project and you would open it up to edit it and to correct a mistake. And find the ESG entry assessment, the date of birth, and make your corrections right here. So let's say the client's date of birth wasn't 1975, it was 1976. So we would change it to 1976, go to the bottom and click Save, but don't click Save and Exit because you're not done yet. Go back up to where you entered that new date of birth, and you see these little color bars next to every answer? Those color bars are what happens when you save, and they do a couple of things. One thing is, if you hover on them, they indicate how old the question is. And these color bars change color over time. The brighter green they are, the newer the question. The darker they get, the older the question. And eventually they'll even turn red. Red isn't necessarily bad, it just means it was answered a really long time ago. But these color bars do a secondary thing. If you actually click on them, they show you the history of that answer. Now, here's why I needed to do this. As you will see, it shows the date effective, who made the changes, what project made the changes, and the actual value entered. And here's where you can see the old date of birth I had put was 1975, which was incorrect. and I changed it to 1976. The problem with this is my effective date is exactly the same. October 5th, 12 p.m. October 5th, 12 p.m. And if I leave this like this, it can cause problems when you go to do reporting, because the reporting will look at these exact same effective dates and not know which value is the correct value. So when this occurs, you need to delete the bad value. So I'm going to find the 1975, which is the incorrect date of birth, and I'm going to delete it by clicking this little trash can. And it's saying, are you sure you want to delete? And I do, because I only want the good date of birth showing. Once I can see only the good date of birth, I can click this little close X in the upper right hand corner, and I can save and exit. And now my record has been corrected. And I can even go to the client profile and see how the date of birth updated and the client's age updated. Now here's another example of fixing date of birth. Let's say you're looking up another client. So I'm going to go to my last viewed here. I love this shortcut. And look up another client. And I'm going to create an entry for them as of today. So I'm going to notice that on the Entry Exit tab, they were in my project back in 2012. They entered, they exited, they went their way. But they've run into some trouble again, and now they're coming back in. So I'm creating a new entry as of today for this family. But during this process, I noticed that the head of household's date of birth was wrong way back in 2012. They weren't 1/1/1985. They were 1/1/1984. So I'm going to change it to 1984, and I'm going to go down and click Save. Now, here's the difference. When I click on the history bar, there are two values, but the date effective is different. This was put in 2012. This was just put in today. When your corrected value has a different effective date than your old value, you do not need to delete the old value. It's only when the date effective is exactly the same. So there's nothing I need to do to this. I've corrected it. I don't need to delete the old one because it was done on a different day, and I can save and exit. I can go to my client profile and their date of birth updates. Now I'll show you an example of how to correct if someone's name was misspelled or social security number data. So you just look up the client in question, be on the client profile, find the client record, and click on the pencil next to that client record title. And here's where you can correct any misspellings. So maybe their name was really Resting. And maybe their social was off. It wasn't 6'5", it's 5'5". And maybe they are a vet after all. Here's where you can make those corrections to the client record and just click Save, and it will update their information. Those are how to make some small corrections in HMIS. If you need to make larger corrections or you're not sure what to do, please feel free to contact the HMIS Help Desk. That's what we're there for. Now, let's go over a few key points that we cover today so that you be sure and do a good job on your quiz. Give me a moment here and I will pull up the summary. Okay, summary for ESG 301 training. Interim updates, household additions, and corrections. So first, when you add an interim update, use the Entry Exit tab and then click on that Interims icon. Rapid Rehousing and Homeless Prevention projects should do an update to the client record at 90-day recertifications, or even more often if required by your contract. On the ESG update assessment, some of the categories you can update are income, non-cash benefits, health insurance, disability types, and the move-in date to permanent housing. Once any source in the sub-assessment categories of income, non-cash benefits, or health insurance are marked as yes, they're receiving it, then it will always remain yes. Do not change it to a no in the sub-assessment, even if you're creating an end date to that benefit. This is because once you end a source, that yes means it was true between the start and end dates. When updating the end of one source or the amount of the source in case of income, and then start a new source or amount, do not just edit and change the existing source or amount. You must end date the old source or amount and then create a new source or the same source with a new amount for income. The end date of the old source or amount should be the day before the new source or amount started. I know that sounded very confusing, but hopefully when I gave the visual demonstration, it made sense. For rapid rehousing clients, once the client or family moves into the selected housing unit, please update the record of every family member, adults and children, to reflect the date the move-in occurred. To create a new household grouping or to add an existing household grouping, go to the Head of Households, Household tab. And when managing a household, please never delete a household member from a household unless they are deceased. Always create the new household member's entry from the Head of Households record, not their own record. And finally, when making corrections on a client's record, you do not have to use backdate mode. Because you're editing the current entry, it automatically backdates for you. Remember, if you have any questions or need assistance, you can contact us at the HMIS Help Desk, either via email at hmissupport@cir.org or by phone or text at 602-908-3605. Thank you, and please refer back to your training confirmation email for further instructions.